I'm a retired United Methodist pastor. One of my former appointments was in Odessa, Catherine, quite a few years ago. And I'm representing over 450 of your friends and neighbors who are standing outside as we meet tonight, and several of your friends whom I'm sure you will recognize in our room tonight. I'd also like these comments to be read into the record. That's appropriate. We have some demands for action. Members of the legislature, we the concerned citizens of Schuyler County demand that the Schuyler County Legislature do the following today. Rule that Chair Dennis Fagan recuse himself immediately from all matters relating to proposed Crestwood project on the shores of Seneca Lake due to a conflict of interest, as explained below. Rescind its June 9, 2014 resolution endorsing the proposal to construct Crestwood industrial facilities on the shore of Seneca Lake for reasons explained below. Resolve not to support any gas storage facility on projects on Seneca Lake now or in the future for reasons below. Initiate immediately a proper, safely, and evacuation procedure plan until said facility is no longer operational for reasons explained below. Hold itself accountable and answer to the violation of open meeting laws for reasons explained below. Hold itself accountable for and answer to violation for code of ethics for reasons explained below. We, the concerned citizens of Schuyler County, once again call on the Schuyler County Legislature to properly and ethically secure the health, safety, and welfare of the county residents by taking the steps detailed in the following pages. We pledge everything with our power as citizens to legally and properly assure that the legislature does so. Our first demand for action. Recusal of Chairman Dennis Fagan. We, the concerned citizens of Schuyler County, demand that the members of the Schuyler County Legislature rule that Chairman Dennis Fagan recuse himself immediately from all matters related to the proposed Crestwood project for these reasons. Number one, despite his denial of current relationship to Fagan Engineering, Dennis Fagan recently sold the company he founded to his younger brother, David Fagan, and two partners, a firm that does business with gas companies and is being paid by Access Midstream, a joint venture partner with Crestwood, for a construction project in Chemung County. That connection should have been revealed by Mr. Fagan when question of apparent conflict of interest were first raised. Two, these facts clearly constitute a conflict of interest. Therefore, Dennis Fagan should not vote, or should not have voted, on the issue regarding an industry for which he and or his family profits. Three, if there is, in fact, no conflict of interest in which Mr. Fagan is obligated, as an elected representative of the county, to prove evidence of that fact. The legislators who backed Mr. Fagan have all said they take his word regarding his severed connection to Fagan Industry. Legislator Phil Barnes said it was up to the concerned citizens of Schuyler County to prove that Mr. Fagan has a conflict of interest. Quite to the contrary. It is incumbent upon Mr. Fagan to supply the proof that he has no conflict of interest. The legislator's current stance on this issue is direct violation of Section 3, and I'd like to read that. To the extent that it is known thereof, a member of the legislature and any officer or employee of the County of Schuyler, whether paid or unpaid, who participates in the discussion or gives official opinion to the legislator on any legislation before the legislator, shall publicly disclose on the official record the nature and extent of any direct or indirect financial or other private interest existing in such legislature. Furthermore, Mr. Fagan behavior in this matter is a direct violation of standards of ethics, Section 4, Number 6, which states that each county employee shall endeavor to pursue a course of conduct that will not raise reasonable suspicion among the public that the employee is likely to engage in an act that are in violation of trust. The evidence raised reasonable suspicion that Dennis Fagan's introduction of the resolution supporting LP project is just a violation of trust. More important, in proposing the June 9th resolution, Mr. Fagan went against the wishes of his constituents, who have been loud and clear about the opposition of Texas-based Crestwood project on Seneca Lake. Our second demand, to immediately rescind the resolution. We, the concerned citizens of Schuyler County, demand that the legislature rescind the June 9, 2004 resolution endorsing Crestwood's proposal to construct this industrial facility on the shores of Seneca Lake. Because there is a clear ethical conflict of interest on the part of Chairman Dennis Fagan, and because Resolution 27 was introduced and voted on by Chairman Fagan, making the resolution, in our estimation, illegitimate. Therefore, the resolution should be rescinded immediately. I'm going to stop at that point and let some of the other folks have an opportunity. But thank you, Chris, for the opportunity to share these remarks. On behalf of the over 450 people who are outside, your friends and your neighbors.
And I just recently had a discussion with one of the legislators, let them know that I'm pursuing having a co-sponsored meeting with Executive Director Robert Freeman, the Committee on Open Government, to bring awareness to people that open meetings laws, in order to be followed and not violated, people need to really become educated. And rather than to divide on the issue, I think it's very proper to have a nonpartisan group. I mean, and I'm looking at a co-sponsor now that is very interested in helping out with this endeavor. It looks like the end of July, we're going to have a forum put together for the public, and I invite the entire legislature to this event because I think you'll find it very helpful and information on how to provide information to the public and how to conduct a meeting that's pursuant to the open meetings law. Because in light of what I witnessed myself, and look guys, I was here at the last meeting, and I was barred from coming into this chambers, okay, which was upstairs. I understand that there's a fire code and how many people you can put in there, how many citizens. I'm well aware of that. Knowingly, we should have known that we should have had it at a larger facility, which would have facilitated that. Because you did know that there was a rather sizable crowd coming because of the issue that's involved. That just touches a little bit on the open meetings law, and it kind of prompts why we should have this. Because those mistakes are being made, and I think people on both sides of the aisle deserve to have their voices heard. And by doing it the way we did it last time, that did not happen. So that has a question in itself also. So I'll emphasize that if anybody wants to help me out with getting more co-sponsors for the event, I think it's a great way to generate revenue for these nonprofit groups that are bipartisan, and it'll bring our community together rather than divide us. And start getting to an issue, the bottom of an issue, properly. Because it looks to me like everybody's jumping the gun, they're frying a lot of fish, and believe me, there's a lot of fish to fry here. But nothing would make me more happier as a citizen to see things done properly. When I ask for information, I like to be able to get it properly and to have an understanding of what our government is doing. Okay? So I wanted to make that presentation, but it looks like July 31st tentatively will be the event. And I'll let you know more about it. I'll send an email to the legislature. Whoever would like to know my email, I'd be more than glad to give it to them. And then we can get on to putting something together and give it some hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Rob McKenzie. I'm a resident with my wife Maggie of the town of Hector for 26 years. I'm a retired physician and administrator. And I serve now as the one and only physician on your Schuyler County Medical Reserve Corps for physicians, for emergencies. I served for 10 years as medical director for County Medical Center and then 10 years as its CEO. I've served as an incident commander for a number of disasters involving loss of life and loss of property. As a concerned citizen of Schuyler County, I'd like to offer you my perspective on safety. First, a brief suggestion on ethics and liability, which have been addressed. I understand that like a hospital, a county and its leaders' individual protection from liability is generally limited to the extent that those leaders have acted in good faith. So I assume that the question of a possible conflict of interest has been carefully reviewed with counsel for the county in order to rebuild confidence with members that may have had that confidence shaken. I would simply suggest that analysis and its conclusions be shared openly. Now on safety. During the years I performed surgery at the Medical Center, I had lots of reasons to practice humility because doctors make mistakes and we have close calls. Every so often as we read the paper, a hospital has a disaster. I became convinced that one of the reasons Cayuga Medical Center had not had such a disaster was just plain luck. So when I became CEO in 2002, our number one priority became safety. It was not a question of balancing safety against other priorities like growth or margin or patient satisfaction. It was that if our patients and our employees weren't safe, none of those other priorities would even matter. I organized and led a group of 20 hospital CEOs from across New York State who were invested in improving their safety performance. We visited the Palo Verde nuclear facility. We visited hospitals that had wrong site surgeries. We visited NASA and asked them what they had done after the Challenger and Columbia incidents. One thing we learned was that safety decision-making is different than the usual democratic process where a majority rules. In safety, it's crucially important to go beyond a majority vote to achieve stakeholder consensus. At NASA, for example, after the tiles fell off and fatally damaged Columbia's wings, shuttle management put in place the simple rule that if any member of the tile installation team had a concern, no matter their rank, they could call up timeout. Work did not resume until the member's concern had been investigated and successfully addressed. At Cayuga Medical Center, among other things, we started doing timeouts before every operation to be sure every member of the team, nurses, anesthesiologists, not just the surgeons, were on the same page. If any member raises a concern during the timeout, we stop the procedure until we can resolve it. My job as CEO was to support those staff persons, even when the doctors who have a vested interest in not having a delay of their case were championing it to bit. In 2010, as the result of our work to improve safety, consumer reports ranked Cayuga Medical Center the safest hospital, large or small, in New York State. Now timeouts have become standard safety procedure across the United States. In the case of liquid propane gas storage, it's no secret that significant safety concerns continue to be raised by many county residents, some outside experts, and even members of this body here. I am no expert in liquid propane, but I am an expert in the design and the management of safety practices. I submit that your duty as legislators in watching over the life and health of God's creatures in this county is the same as that of the leaders at Palo Verde, at NASA, at Cayuga, at Schuyler Hospital. As every one of those organizations, and now GM, has learned, it's not a question of balancing safety issues against economics or politics or car sales or the country's need for cost of fuel. Those priorities just don't matter after a disaster. Our highest duty is to listen to, support, and validate those who raise safety concerns, even if that costs time or money. Then if, God forbid, a crash or explosion ever does occur, and that liability suit is inevitably brought, sound safety practice is our best defense individually and collectively. Last month I came here to respectfully request that you approve Mr. Lauzel's resolution to work on safety before the horse was out of the barn, but there wasn't time. So come back to say it's still not too late to do that. Please take a time out. Please rescind Mr. Fagan's premature resolution until the ethical and safety concerns, which have been legitimately raised, can be calmly aired, equitably resolved, to everyone's reasonable satisfaction. Thank you very much.
Here, I don't live in Schuyler County, I live in Rochester, New York. I've hosted radio shows about wine and food for 18 years, covering the Finger Lakes and the development of the Finger Lakes. And right now you're looking at potential safety and ethics reasons to rescind this resolution. I would put out there that the fact that the best winemakers in the world have just bought land and started vineyards in Schuyler County, almost exclusively actually, ironically, up the east side of the lake, that alone is reason to rescind this resolution. You didn't have to give them incentives to come here. You didn't have to give them tax incentives. You didn't have to go out and recruit them. They came here because they looked around the world where they wanted to invest in making wine next. They looked around the Finger Lakes once they got here and decided on Seneca Lake and basically Watkins Glen. And so I don't know how much any of you know about Paul Hobbs or Johannes Salbach or Louis Barol. Probably not very much, I'm guessing. There hasn't been a lot in the news, but these are the best of the best in the world. Paul just got awarded 100 points for an Argentinian wine at his winery there, the first ever in South America. He has a winery in Sonoma, where he's also been awarded 100 points. Perhaps the only winemaker ever to get that kind of rating in 2 different continents. So he decided to partner with a Mosel, Johannes Selbach, one of the best winemakers and wineries in the Mosel, to make Riesling right here. That's the clearing just above on the east side of the lake. They cleared 40 acres, they planted 2. They'll plant the rest of the 40 acres over the next 3 years, perhaps. Louis Barol is Chateau Saint Côme, the genius of Gigondas, according to the Wine Spectator. He's partnering with Forge Cellars, a Hector wine company, also in Schuyler County. These are the major players in the world of wine. They're shining a spotlight on this region, which other investors are going to follow, because land here is exponentially cheaper than it is in Washington and Oregon and California. In the Mosel, there's nowhere else to plant. It's going to bring people here, and perhaps California wineries, just because they need to hedge their climate change bets on a cool climate region like the Finger Lakes. This is an exciting time for the Finger Lakes, and allowing an industrial zone on the west side of the lake, where these winemakers on the east side, who are thinking about building visitor centers that will draw people from New York City, from around the world, are going to look out on trains, trucks, pipelines, etc. It's going to dampen investment incredibly. They can go elsewhere in the world. They can sell their land, go to Ceuta Lake, they can go to Armenia, to France. There are other options for them. But they've chosen the Finger Lakes and they've chosen Schuyler County. And you did not have to recruit them, but you can chase them away. And that's why I think you should rescind this resolution, so that you don't chase away that investment and the tourists that will follow them here. Thank you very much for your time.
My name is Joseph Campbell, and I'm a resident of Burdett and Hector, Schuyler County. I just have a real quick statement here regarding that resolution supporting Finger Lakes LPG storage. And I'm going to read a passage from that. And I brought this point up last month as well. Whereas the county understands that the DEC staff assigned to this project has completed its review of the project and is ready to finalize the secret process and make a permanent decision. And what I said last month was that I had been on the phone with David Bimber, Deputy Regional Permit Administrator, who's been in charge of this project since its inception, and that he told me on the phone that no, this is still under review, they're still looking at public comments, there's really no final environmental impact statement at all. Languishing on the commissioner's desk, just waiting for his signature. And Chair Fagan, Mr. Fagan asked me if I had anything in writing to support that, and unfortunately I was unable to supply that at that time. And I said, excuse me, I was waiting for a document. And ironically, if I had stayed home for 10 minutes, instead of coming down here to stand in front of the door to the county office building, I would have gotten this email, which you all have a copy of, from Region 8 Permit Administrator Scott Schuyler. Now, he's the guy who is in charge of this project. And he's the guy who wrote to me and said, Dear Mr. Campbell, the DEC permit application remains pending while DEC staff continues to review the public comments submitted on the draft environmental impact statement during the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act secret process. Sincerely, Scott Schuyler. And so I would ask Chairman Fagan, I have named my sources at the DEC, David Bimber and Scott Schuyler, and I provided written documentation that no, there is no permit languishing on the commissioner's desk, and based on that, if you have those documents and you can name your sources at the DEC, then we can put this one to rest. But if you can't, then just based on that discrepancy in this resolution, I think that this resolution should be rescinded just on that fact alone. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I'm landlocked back here, retired as a chemist from Cornell University, and one of my responsibilities while working at Cornell was to clean out abandoned laboratories. As part of that clean out, I accumulated close to 1,000 small lecture bottles of gases. And I contacted Matheson, who was the major gas producer, at least was then, about how we could dispose of them. And they were kind at the time to send a truck to take the stuff away, which they wouldn't do today. And in my conversation with the fellow at Matheson, I asked what the nastiest gas was that they dealt with. I didn't ask for the most poisonous, I asked for the nastiest or the most hazardous, and he said propane. Okay, so keep that in mind. The other question I have is, has anybody considered what happened over in Remsen during my brief tenure in Watkins Glen? Salt line caved in over there, and they had to close the line. I'm blessed with, but cursed by, a very good memory.
A mistake has been made by this legislature, and we ask you to rectify that mistake and to do right by your community. Thank you so much.
You'll know me as the process engineer at the salt plant too. I'm also known by people outside as that company shill, I believe I heard several times. But I want to make it clear that I do not speak as any salt plant representative or Crestwood or anything. But I'll tell you why I do speak. First, let me specifically thank Phil Barnes for voting for that resolution last month, specifically for the silent majority. And I am one of that silent majority and glad to represent it. Now, many have wondered why I am inspired to be the engineer who keeps gas-free Seneca honest. And I have a history that drives me to that. It's Pocatello, Idaho experience. Pocatello, Idaho had the world's largest elemental phosphorus plant, largest, most efficient going plant in the world. Starting in the late 70s, a small cadre of people connected with the university there became activists. They enlisted and kept pestering Region 10 in Seattle. And so over a period of 20 years, Region 10 kept tightening up the garret that they had with environmental regulations over FMC corporations, Pocatello plant. Well, guess what? In 1997, that plant closed, 500 jobs disappeared, and now all of us Americans get to send around $150 million a year to Red China to buy the phosphorus that we use to make Roundup and kill weeds. So, there were many local impacts. There's probably 1,500 people in Pocatello and around that didn't have jobs also. The the Shoshone-Bannock Indian Reservation reverted to poverty-stricken status. And this is a high-cost example of today's anti-carbon energy activism. It's the current politically correct thing to do. Here in Watkins Glen, we have a 3-year delay in putting $30 million on the property tax rolls. And that probably cost myself around $300 in additional taxes that a company, Crestwood, would have paid instead of me. Now, it's cost 8 families their livelihood, that delay. And lack of storage caused propane tanker trains through Watkins Glen in January and February, which had a tanker truck about every 3 or 4 minutes through this town. Anybody that had their eyes open could see that. And the reason for that was that the local storage went empty. And you combine that with a cold winter, and lo and behold, there's a big draw for propane in the Northwest that couldn't be met by local storage and pipeline capacity. So you had a second pipeline formed, which was all those trucks going right through Watkins Glen. There's been a lot of talk about risk, hazard, and all that. And that was just added to that hazard then. The propane costs for those that didn't have contracts roughly doubled. And there was supposedly about $100 million of total impact to the Northeast United States over the fact that there was not adequate capacity for storage in the Northeast United States. So, this group has disrupted the free market system and the normal responses to it that would have occurred given business responding to market demands. Now, I've got a list of, over 4 years now, I've collected what is now 18 myths that gas-free Seneca has generated. Just in the last month, they've given me 3 more. Number 16, Dennis Fagan is got a conflict of interest. Number 17, the 5 legislators who voted for that resolution must be on the take. And number 18, this group represents the majority in the county. I think I disagree with that. So, that is why I applaud the legislature for its resolve for passing that resolution of support, and I expect you to continue to do so. Thank you.
When I moved to Watkins Glen, he took me up and we looked at where the salt caverns are going to be, and I have to be honest, there is a thing that, and I've said before to this body, that I am not necessarily affiliated with Gas Free Seneca, although I do appreciate their efforts to keep this out of our community. But he was kind enough to take us up there, and it was funny because I said, why don't we have a solar array? Solar's too expensive. Propane, not too expensive, obviously. But that's okay. So I want to address, though, the manufactured propane shortage that was made this winter by the gas companies, who basically shut down a pipeline to the east of us so that it couldn't be piped. Propane also is not safe for piping. It has to be trucked and transported if you look up propane. Second off, it was very, again, as you well know, my opinion on that is short-sighted with this resolution. But I must say, and it's all I'm going to say, is if there is such a silent majority, I don't understand why a majority wouldn't come and speak, and why this minority is showing up every time to tell you this is the worst thing you can possibly do for this community. I don't care about wine. I don't care about brine, quite honestly. I believe that your engineering company will fix a brine tank leak or a field leak or whatever. Maybe the lake isn't at risk. What I care about is the industry doesn't care about you or me or any of us. And when they blow it up, or when they pollute it, or when they just leave, why the salt plant jobs are threatened when they're not having anything to do with gas makes no sense to me. We still need salt, we still need saline drips, we still need everything. Someone will come and take the salt plant. Someone can't clean those caverns. And when the bad happens, they will be gone. I don't care if they state they're our neighbors. They live in Texas. And we'll pay thousands more in taxes to clean up what they leave behind for us. That's all I have to say. Thank you. So.
Fagan engineers having worked for them, I have absolutely no idea where you got that information. My firm, when I was the sole proprietor up to the end of 2012, had absolutely nothing to do with any of the subsidiaries in Crestwood, including Access Energy, or whatever it is, Mid Street, whatever it's called, that you referenced, as we having worked on it in Chemung County. I called the current president of Fagan Engineers. It's now a professional corporation. I have absolutely nothing to do with it. And I simply said, have you done any work, or have you any ongoing work with this firm? And they said they don't even have a master's service agreement with the firm, much less having done any work for it. So I don't know where that information came from. As far as I'm concerned, I have absolutely no conflict of interest on this project, other than maybe a little bit more knowledge than the average person about the details of the project, simply because I spent a lot of time researching it myself. As to Mr. Taylor's comments on the Campbell, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Comments on the my sources at DEC. I'm not gonna reveal my sources. And it's quite obvious to me that when you make a formal request at DEC, they're going to say exactly what they told you. However, I'll point out that on July 1st, Senator George Mazaraz of Niagara, who is the chair of the Energy Committee in the Senate, basically stated the same thing that I stated. He's urging the governor to to make a decision on the propane storage project. He indicated the DEC staff assigned to the project completed their review and recommended approval. The DEC central office is now needlessly sitting on the issuing of the final underground storage permit. So I'll simply stand by that. Any other comments? Roll please.
Halpin. Yes. Barnes.
No.
Hart.
Yes.
LaSalle.
Yes.
Howell.
No.
Gifford.
No.
Field.
No.
Fagan.
No.
Resolution rescind fails.
Is there any other new business? How about unfinished business?
That's unfinished, that's for sure.
Report on standing committees, Barb? No. Bill? Dan? Michael? Jim? County administrators report.
Nothing.
All participation for 15 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
What happened up in Ithaca. I'm surprised there's not been a reference to the accident up there.
Yeah.
I don't know all the details about it, but until I see a safety plan.
We just had a truck accident up on the hill up here the other day. Read the writing on the wall, folks.
But
That was a propane truck.
I
Exactly.
want to see a comprehensive emergency
Safety
response
plan.
plan
Come on,
in
guys.
place that's thorough and done very well. And I want to compliment Dr. McKenzie
Yes.
for his presentation.
Very good. That was very good.
I'd just like to point out on this opposition map that was just presented to us, you've got Yates County shown as being in opposition to this project. They never passed a resolution in opposition to this project. Never.
They haven't decided it yet either.
Could I clarify that?
Sure can.
The Yates County Legislature, 2 dissenting votes, sent a letter to the DEC, and Governor Cuomo stating their
Concerns. Environmental concerns, that DEC adequately address those concerns. That is not opposition to the project. I would also like to point out that 60% of the counties within the Seneca Lake watershed have not supported or have not passed resolutions in opposition to this project.
Yet.
Maybe it should be a regional
Yet.
decision. Maybe it should be a regional
One county hasn't
decision.
passed such a resolution, Yates County hasn't passed such a resolution, we haven't passed such a resolution.
Because they're proceeding with caution.
Yes, sir, in the back.
So much has been said about the silent majority. This is the first time any of you have ever seen me at a meeting, so I am part of the silent majority.
And me.
I just think that you're putting the cart before the horse. Dr. McKenzie's points were very salient.
Yes, ma'am. The person in front of them? Didn't you have your hand raised?
Well, I'm part of the silent majority.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Gita Davy. I live in the town of Reading and I run a small bed and breakfast. And I have to tell you, I am totally disgusted with what happened here tonight, except for those of you who saw the light. I mean, what is the rush to get this passed without having a safety plan in place? We're your constituents. There are over 500 of us probably right now asking you to take a step backward and go on the side of sanity and not rush forward with this. I don't understand. You're supposed to represent us, not this company that's from out of state. We're your constituents. We're asking you to do this, and you continually ignore us. And I don't understand it. Personally, it's just beyond belief.
Yes, ma'am.
You've become very well organized, much better than what you were last week or last month. But we have no say in this process.
Then rescind.
You need to go to Albany. Now let me talk. I've been polite and listened to you folks. you need to go to Albany. The paperwork is on the governor's desk. You need to do your pitch to the people in Albany. You need to talk to your state legislatures. Your assemblymen, your current senators are in favor of this project. If you disagree with their concept, then run against them. Martha Robertson is running against the congressman because she doesn't agree with what he represents. Your problem is in Albany. That is where the permitting process starts and ends. We only want the governor to do his job and do something, good, bad, or indifferent, and we have to live with it. And the rest of it will fall in place. If the governor says, we're gonna go ahead and do this, then all these safety issues coming from the state and federal government will all fall in place because that's what's taken so long, is to do that. But to sit here and try to get us to change, or try to get more of us to change, we have no say in this. And I've been very outspoken about.
Mr. Barnes, the very legislation that you passed said far more than that. Your legislation did not just say, please address this issue. Your legislation supported it. And so please, your constituents, your neighbors, we've done everything in our power, and you're not listening to us.
We do have constituents that do support it.
Where are they?
They sit there and.
Could everybody else please tell us what it would take? What would it take? What would it take?
You speak about my constituents. My constituents support this.
Where are they? Where are they?
On the hill over there, and Catherine, and David, and those places, whatever. Those are the people I represent, and they support this. How many of you are, I just have a question. How many of you are from the town of Pembroke?
Oh, no.
Wait a minute.
How many of you support land use planning? 1, 2, 3. I knew you would, and I knew you would, yeah. Everybody else up in Hackett does nothing ever to do with land use planning.
Hey, Mr.
That's
Gifford,
different, that's
But
kind of
do
a
I know where the
different
rest
issue.
how many votes did you get in the last election, Mr. Gifford?
I'm not running.
You got 24 votes. 24 votes, everybody.
15-minute period is up.
May I just address, Mr. Fagan, one little thing? And this is because the Supreme Court of the state of New York rules that home rule is the law in this land. Every town is free to decide what businesses they let into their town borders and what they do not. This county can also say no, it can. And I appreciate, and I will take it to Albany. I will, you mark my words, but I'll tell you what, you have a right to say, this is not allowed in our town, in our county. So don't give up your rights.
That was just passed.
It was.
If you believe in it.
All in favor? Thank you all.